Good morning, family. It is Steffi, and I am back with another video for the Be the Light series. I want to say again how much I appreciate the feedback and the interaction that I've had with some of you. It's been so lovely. And one of the things is someone has sent a comment in with the question, what is singularity? And I love getting into this topic. It's part of what I teach. It's part of the work that I do in the walk around real world of form and construct. So let's get into it today. First and foremost, we all live in a world that is hallmarked by duality. Look around. Every single thing has its polar equity. I used to use the word opposites. I have trained myself to change my language for it to be more in accordance and in alignment with the truth that I now understand and that I live by and in. So I don't use the word opposites too frequently anymore, because opposites usually has an implication that one thing is good, another thing is bad, one thing is preferable to the other being not so preferable. So I have gotten into the habit of using the word equity. And when we're talking about two equities that are apart from one another on the spectrum, as they can be observed and experienced, they become polar equities, what people would typically refer to as polar opposites. But we live in a world of seemingly opposing forces, and yet they are not opposing. This is what we have to understand. You know, as we look around our climate right now, as we look around the political landscape, we look at each other, we look at our families. Gosh, it's Thanksgiving, and there are people who are not going to be together, who share the same genetics, who love one another, who have been friends for years, who simply are not going to be together on a made-up day that celebrates genocide. I mean, let's be realistic. You know, we're a little crazy. Like I say all the time, we have a long history and very short memories, we humans. So we're not going to get together with one another because you believe something antithetical than to what I believe, or you voted for someone whom I can't fathom being in a position of power, even legally being allowed to walk around the streets. Like, there are so many opposing polarities right now with regard to what's happening in American culture in particular because of the recent election. This is the world of form and construct. This is the hallmark of being a human here as a body with a lifespan that has a beginning and an end. Even life and death are polar opposites, if you want to use that word. But the reason I refer to duality now more increasingly as polar equities and equities inside of a construct is because you cannot have life without death. You cannot have high without low. Light without dark cannot exist. There is an aspect of our existence here on planet Earth that requires polarity, that requires seemingly opposite things to exist. Here's what happens as we awaken, as we enlighten, as we become aware of the real reality underneath the illusion of form and duality. We begin to understand that the two polar equities are actually the same thing. You begin to be able to piece together how light and dark can coexist, must coexist, how high and low do not exist without each other's presence. There is no short if there is no tall. There is no day if there is no night. There is no good if there is no evil. So we have to be careful when we ascribe and assign these characteristics, these adjectives to one another. Because behind all of the duality, at the core of what has become an illusory world of quote-unquote polar opposites is a singular focal point, a singular energy This is singularity. Singularity is taking the duality and reconnecting the sides, closing the chasm between what we perceive to be opposite, and bringing them back together so that we understand the requirement of one for the other. Now, that is a philosophical definition of singularity. That could even be conferred or translated into a pseudo-religious version of singularity. But there is a scientific experience of singularity. There is an understanding, particularly in the quantum fields of science, that says there was a point of singularity. We call it the Big Bang in science. People coming from religious backgrounds and even certain philosophies throughout time and space have called it creation. We think it happened over 7 days, or it happened over a month, or it happened over 13 billion years. Like, it doesn't matter. Science, philosophy, and religion all understand that there was a point in time where there was one. There was a singular point of origin. There was a singular, condensed form of energetic potential. That is singularity in reality, in real reality. This all came, whether you think it took 7 days or 13 billion years, this all came from nothing. The Bible says in the beginning was the Word. One thing. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word became flesh, and the flesh became everything. Quantum physics says there was a point of such a condensed, pressurized energy that at the point in which it could no longer contain itself, it became everything. So singularity is a real thing. It's real in science. It's real in religion. But as I refer to singularity, as I talk about the events that are happening right here on this planet, particularly in America, because that's what we as Americans focus on. But again, it's been happening around the globe for many years. This move towards ultra-conservatism, this move towards, America is for Americans and Americans only, to verbatim quote Stephen Miller. I think he's the head of some department, which he absolutely, in a different world, would not be the head of. So the singularity to which I refer when I make these videos, the singularity to which I refer that we are in a process of returning to, is the collapsing in of duality, is the collapsing in of the polar equities, where we begin to understand, oh, male is female, right is left, high is low, dark is light. Because I'm going to go out on a limb here. Right now, we're looking at the conservative right. We're looking at the alt-right. We're looking at Christian nationalists. And the minute you invoke the word Christian, well, it must be Christ-like. No. No, there is nothing Christ-like in nationalism. Patriotism is great until it's not. We have sacrificed our interconnected humanity for lines that have been drawn in the sand and will continue to be drawn and wiped away and redrawn. So a country is no more than a line in the dirt that the winner of the last fight got to draw. And when we use that line in the dirt to cut off our interconnectedness to our fellow human, we call that patriotism. But that is the beginning of a very slippery slope. I'm not going to say too much more about that. If you have ears to hear and eyes to see, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So singularity is ultimately the thing that supports this dualistic system, this dualistic illusion of reality in which we live. Singularity is the thing that is the real reality underneath the duality of form and construct. And it's the place to which we are about to return. And in order for that to happen, all of the duality has to crumble. And democracy is certainly one of the dualities that is about to crumble. It's been crumbling in Eastern Europe. It's been crumbling in Europe. And here it is, at the threshold of the doorway to America, the United States of America. Here we are. We're about to flush democracy down a toilet for the sake of a nationalism based on what people call faith and religious identity. And it's interesting because I've had people for years saying, well, how do you feel about religion if you believe that, everything ultimately comes from the same source and that ultimately it's all necessary? They say, where does religion fall in that? And I just say, just look at what they teach you. Just look at what religion prizes and values. It's such a dualistic system. It is duality incarnate. We have Jesus, the King of the Jews, sacrificed for the sins of the Christians. And you want to talk about duality, right and wrong, high and low, hierarchy. Look no further than religion if you want to understand duality. So that's what I have to say about that. But I want to reach out and answer the questions that come to me. I love the interaction. Again, it's so appreciated. And that's the lesson for today. Duality versus the illusion of duality versus the reality of singularity. We are on our way back to singularity. It's time. It's time for us to return to our whatness. And we are going to sacrifice a whole lot of our who-ness in the interim. And it's all good. It's all okay. Listen, go to Thanksgiving. Enjoy your people. Have the conversations that hurt. Have the conversations that are hard. If you need to. But you don't need to. It's not necessary. You can look in somebody's eyes and see yourself. We are one. There is an interconnectedness that cannot be denied when you understand that duality is the illusion and singularity is the reality. I don't have to tolerate you. I am you. I am a version of you. I'm a version of you that I have been, and I'm glad I am no longer. I'm a version of you that I currently am, that I'm either happy with and serves me, or I'm not happy with because it doesn't serve me, or I'm a version of you that I want to become. You're a version of me that I want to become. There are no others. There are mirrors. We're all being reflected back at ourselves vis-a-vis the reflection of a quote-unquote other. There are no others. There's mirrors. That's another prime tenet of spiritual singularity. We are not separate. Separation it's our primal wound as humans. This idea that we're separate from one another. Don't be separate. Be the light. Love is the answer. Look at this person and see them for them as they are. Not for the masks. We talked about that in the last video. Not for the costume. There's a version of God. There's a version of you in those eyes. So, enjoy your holiday. Be the light.